Welcome back. Got another little project here. This time it's going to be in the garage. We're going to be adding or trying to take back, more like it, this space here in the garage. It's sort of turned into a, well, I don't really know what you would call it. It's our little bin for pop cans. Got some old rugs that got to go to Goodwill, recycle bin, wash buckets, mold bucket, garden tools, grade stakes, 2 buckets of grade stakes, a handy little green plastic wheelbarrow that's turned into a storage barrel because we never get to use it because it's full of all this garden equipment and all these tools that never seem to go back in the place that they're supposed to go. So we're going to try to arrange this. Sarah, my wife, she wants a bench or a counter, I guess more precise. A nice counter for her to do her planting and storing of her plants for the winter and just things that she can do garden wise. So I think I'm going to put in a little melamine countertop here and make it a little more usable than what it is. We'll see how it turns out. Well, it's been about 23 years since this wall saw the light of day. Clean it all out, get it ready for a nailer to screw on the wall there, and get this counter started. So I'm going to use my little laser here. It's an old PLS 180. I'm not even sure they still make this. Made in the USA back in the day. But this one's pretty old, but it still works. It's real handy for setting a line like that on a wall. You turn it on, and it'll just shoot a laser line. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, it shoots it all the way down the line. I want the counter about 36 inches up, but the floor slopes down about 1.5 inches in the span that we're going to be putting the counter in. So I'll split the difference, and I'll come up here from the floor 36 3/4, and then whatever the difference is from the laser to that mark, I'll come down that much down at that end. So this line here is going to be the top of the ledger board, and the finished counter will be 3/4 of an inch above that. I found an old 2x2. It was laying around in the shop. Figured I'd clean it up, cut it to length, and I think it'll work real good for the ledger. Ended up anchoring it. Found every stud, usually about 16 inches on center, and I used a 3-inch. It's a 3-inch sheet metal screw, number 12. It's got a number 3 tip on it. I put just a little bit of wax on the end from that little tube right there. I don't know if you guys ever seen any of this stuff. It's just stick wax. Use it for lubricating saw blades and whatnot, and it works good for screws. Makes them go into wood real easy. So yeah, getting ready to put the countertop down. So just got back from Home Depot, got a couple sheets, 4x8 by 3/4 melamine, 2 sheets. And I think that'll be plenty to cut the tops and the sides, maybe some vertical end supports for it. So I don't have a nice big table saw, so I'm just gonna lay these sheets down on these boards. She doesn't want it real deep, so I'm cutting the countertops 20 inches deep. So I'll need 2 of those at 8 foot. And then, of course, the sides will be 20 by 36. And we'll start cutting and building. Okay. So I needed one more 4-foot vertical support, and I like the edge that the table saw does. It does a lot better, cleaner edge versus my skill saw, which looks like a beaver chewed up on it. So I'll overcut this one. I want a finish of 4 inches, so I cut this at 4.5, and I'll run it twice through my table saw. First cut's at like 4 3/8. That'll get rid of a lot of this stuff, and then I'll flip it around and cut it at 4 inches. So I'm screwing all my right angle boards together with the little Craig jig, which is this little gizmo. Comes in a little kit. The company's named Craig. They've got tons of different cool woodworking tools. These are very basic as far as what I'm using. It just does they call a pocket anchor. And these have already been done, but you basically should put your stop up against the edge of your board. They make it pretty simple. I don't know if you can read it, but if you're anchoring into a 1/2 inch board or a 3/4 inch board or an 1.5 inch board, we're going to do that backwards. Yeah, that's the 1/2 inch, that's the 3/4, that's the 1.5 inch. You set your stop to that point, put it up against your wood, you clamp it. I just use a cowboy clamp. And then you've got this drill bit. It's a custom bit that comes with the kit. And it's got a stop on it. I make the stop set. Same thing again. There's the 1.5 inch, there's the 3/4, and there's the 1/2 inch. So you just put the circle over the thickness of the board that you're doing, and then set the set screw. Run the bit in until it comes out, and you got a hole. And it's very strong. I'm cutting the radius.
Okay.
And they're 1.25 inches, so they don't go through you know, when you run your screw through this pocket hole. Now that jig is set up. It's got the hole in it for the screw to start, and it doesn't quite come through it, but it's a real aggressive thread. So when you run that screw in, it comes out and goes right into the board, and boy, it gets tight. From the line. A 1-inch offset line with a little fascia board. I run that to that pencil line. Just a little bit of glue. That makes a real solid anchor. I'm just getting it set. So when I get over there. Just lay it on the ledger. This. Not all the way under, just sort of out towards the front. Okay. It's not going to be perfect. This one's probably taller.
I'll just hold it.
Okay. Well, we're going to need a... We're going to need a board there anyways, because these screws probably won't hold it all. Wonderful. And this one's a little high, I can tell. Yeah. Boy, that one's right on. Huh. Okay, I'll have to cut that one down. I'll just kidding. Nice and level. Very nice. Good job. Well, it didn't take me very long to take over my wife's planting bench, turned into a workbench here. But we got the counter up. We got it anchored on the back. I just went with a 2-inch flathead screw, screwed it to that ledger board that we have over here, running continuous. And to help support the next counter that comes on, I just took a 4-inch or 3-inch board and screwed it and glued it from the underside. And there again, I'm using the 1.25-inch screws, those guys right there. I over countersink them, which is that hole right there, just so I get a little more bite. Because if you see, there's not a ton of bite there with that 1.25 inch, but you don't want 1.5 inches because it'll probably go all the way through the top. I did decide to go with legs instead of panels. I thought originally I'd put a full-length panel right here, but that was just too much work, too much material. I would have had to notch around the foundation, notched around the ledger board, and it was just too much work. And just putting a vertical support or a leg is going to be plenty stout enough. So I'll get started and do this middle one here, and then we'll put that last counter on and finish this up. And this is the inside, so this is the side I'm going to put my countersink on, and this is my countersink. It's for number 10. They make different size countersinks for the size of screw head you're using. And I'm going to over countersink it, which that would be normally how deep you would go for a 10, but I want the screw to go deeper, so I'm going to go down a little more. And now that's ready for a little bit of glue there, and we'll take those burrs off so this board will lay flat on the inside. Put a little glue, put it in place. It's already cut for length, and it's meant to go right up tight to the underside of the counter, so it'll give it good support. There's 96, so I want 48. Center. That's center. Just a little bit of glue, not much. Get my torpedo level. Nice and plumb there. Not quite there yet. Close enough when we get there. That is perfectly level on top. Run some screws in it. Very good. So what I'm going to do here, I've got this unfinished edge on the melamine. It's got that particle board, and they have material like this called edge banding. It comes in different widths. This width here is 13/16, and it's got like a glue that you activate with an iron or some sort of a heat source, and it bonds it to the edge. So you just apply it, press it, it melts itself to it, and then you trim off the excess with this cute little tool here. But I have never done edge banding before, so a couple things I learned on the first support I did is with the iron, you don't want any water in your iron because you don't want any steam. You just want the heat. So when you push your iron down, it just uses heat and no steam. And buy a wider edge band. If your board's 3/4, I think it's a lot easier just to trim off the excess than it was trying to hold one edge, somewhat flush, and then trimming this edge. It trims really easy, but I'll show you here in a second. But better to buy a little wider than to buy, I wouldn't buy 13/16 for a 3/4 inch board again. So tear it the length you need. Put your iron on the wool setting, and I've got it flush to the inside of the board, so my overhang is on my finished side. And I'm holding it, trying to hold it straight. Let the iron do its thing. I've got a little pointing tool. This is like a carpet tuck tool. I'm just going to follow behind the iron again and press down on it. Just sort of, not sure how well you're going to see that. It just sort of presses it down onto it a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut my excess off here. And I'll use this little tool it cuts it very straight, really nice. You can take just a little bit of 220, real lightly, just sort of give it a seam. It's pretty good. Then on the bottom, I didn't want the particle board just sitting on the concrete, so I'm going to put a little plastic shim on the bottom of these. So I'm just taking these shims here, which are an 1/8 inch shim. I cut them 3/4 wide, and I'll just hot glue it to the bottom of the board. It doesn't take much. Glue's pretty quick. I'll drill my anchor holes on this and get it ready to put down. But yeah, it finishes pretty nice. Do this side here. And I just clamped this other board to it just to keep it from tipping over on me. caulk that too. Huh? Well, I finished up the counter this morning. Took a couple days, and I thought it turned out pretty nice. Sarah's going to be very happy with her little planter bench, workbench, craft bench. It's about 14 feet long. In order to clear the garage door here, we only made it 20 inches deep, but that's plenty. And I am not a cabinet builder by any means. I've never done milliming, I've never done edge banding before, but it turned out pretty good. I'm sure a true craftsman would do a little better job on it. On my gaps here, I just put the edge banding on it. I glued it down with the iron. I think it works pretty good. The backsplash, I didn't want to caulk it on, so I just ran 3 screws. So in the future, if somebody want to rip this thing off, it can, you know, save the sheetrock from being ripped apart. And I went with these tiny little screws. I'm not even sure what you call them. They got like an 1/8 inch head on it. They got a square drive tip on it. I don't know if you can see that or not. About a little over 2 inches long. And you only have to drill a very small, 1/8 inch hole. Straight hole, don't countersink it. And these screws sit in flush, and the head is so small they just disappear once you touch them up with a little touch-up paint. So that turned out real well. Ran a bead of caulking where the backsplash hits the counter. And I've got a video on what I do when I caulk. I'll link it down below. But the product I've found that works for me as far as what type of interior caulking I do is it's made by Behr. You get it at Home Depot. Interior, exterior, but it's real forgiving. It doesn't skim over real quick, gives you time to play with it. And I always use a wet rag and a wet finger to tool that joint. And that's why it ends up looking so uniform the way it does. Yeah, you should check out that video. It's pretty helpful, I think. But yeah, it turned out well. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments about what I did and what I didn't do, what I did wrong and what I did right, let me know. I'm sure there'll be comments about these vertical supports, not having a gusset or a brace on them. I may end up coming back with a little gusset to strengthen it up, because if you hit these, they'll move in and out of plumb. I did on the back side. I put a big old bead of white urethane just to keep it, once that sets up, that will definitely strengthen up those little legs. But yeah, fun project. I think we'll get great use out of it. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you on the next one.